actually pronounced Omicron, but seriously, the Omicron variant sounds like the title of a sci-fi horror film, but this is life now, right? So you may have heard yesterday that there's a new variant of the SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. Okay, so the last bad variant of concern that we knew about was Delta, and Delta kind of took over everything. It was the worst and it became dominant. Well, in between Delta and this new one, there have been other mutations, but if they weren't concerning, then we didn't hear about them, right? So this is the next one that is obviously concerning. And what really gets me is when it came to Delta, it was B16172 in India. It was ravaging India, and yet it was still labeled a variant of interest. To me, it took quite a while before they called it a variant of concern. Well, now with this, what is it, B11529, it was first detected on November 9th, and now November 26th, the World Health Organization has already called it a variant of concern. That's how bad it is, for a number of reasons. Okay, so now I'm not an expert, right? I'm not a doctor. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a health official. But quite frankly, I mean, even the experts have been wrong quite often and had to backtrack and change their recommendations. I mean, most of us have known since last year that COVID is airborne, and yet some health officials are just now acknowledging it. So everything's been droplet. The focus was on droplet. And this is what dictated the mitigations, like plexiglass barriers and, the 6 feet of distance, and because it was assumed that the virus would escape through droplets, and that droplets, are exhaled, they fall, what have you, and they're on surfaces. So we were cleaning surfaces, we had barriers, you washed your hands, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's always good to wash your hands, but anyway. Now they're finally acknowledging, well, no, these are very fine aerosol particles. They don't just fall to the ground. They are in the air like smoke, and it lingers in the air. So 6 feet isn't even enough. I mean, if you're around people at all and you're breathing the same air, you're going to be breathing it in, just like smoke, or in the cold, like you can see your breath outside. Now outdoors, at least the air, it's dispersed, so you don't have to worry. It's indoors that you really have to worry when you're in close proximity to other people. That's when masks are so important. But yeah, so they're just now saying that COVID is airborne. Well, now we've got this new variant that sounds really bad. I mean, they're still learning about it, but so far it does not sound good. I mean, okay, so the first known case was in Botswana in South Africa, November 9th. Now, South Africa, everyone's going to be blaming South Africa and like, this is the South African variant. They're just the first ones that detected this and identified it. For all we know, it's already around the world, and people just didn't identify it as a new variant. So this variant has a lot of mutations. Like every variant will have mutations. This has, it has 32 mutations on the spike protein. That's a lot. Now, it has some of the same ones that other variants had, but it has some brand new mutations that nothing else has had before. Now, the reason the spike protein is so important, it's what helps the virus attach to cells. So, like when they were designing the vaccines, it was based on the spike protein and trying to teach the body how to look for this and to fight it off, like to create antibodies. The problem is, if the virus changes, if that spike protein changes, that might reduce the vaccine's efficacy. And they don't know yet. I mean, they're still studying it, but the fact that the first people that have had this, they're all vaccinated. Now, this is another thing. There's so many things I want to get off my chest, and people are going to be mad at me because I stay home and stay safe. So this really won't affect Michelle and I because we're home all the time. But most people aren't willing or able to stay home, and people want life to get back to normal. And unfortunately, I think that's part of what's driving all of this. A lot of people seem to think that if they've had the vaccine, they don't have to worry anymore. Now, the reason that all the people with this are vaccinated, you have to be vaccinated to travel. But I think international travel is part of the problem. You're going all over the place, and the problem is the horse is already out of the barn. By the time they discover it, it's already too late because that person has already traveled. So it's already around the world. Like, this keeps happening. For 2 years, we've been in this pandemic and they're still learning nothing. Like, they're still making the same mistakes. It's always too little, too late. People want to get back to normal. So they're so anxious to get back to normal life. And they were sold on this idea that if you get vaccinated, you don't have to worry. You're immune. You can go to big sporting events, go to large gatherings. You can travel. Well, that's all well and good. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not anti-vaccine, okay? But vaccines are a layer of protection. They're not a cure. They're not a guarantee. You can still transmit the virus. You can still catch it. You can still transmit it. So yes, vaccines reduce the severity of illness and hospitalization and hopefully prevent death, but you can still catch and transmit the virus. So people that have this false sense of security and complacency thinking, oh, I'm vaccinated, I don't have to worry. They're going out and taking more risks because they want to get back to normal. And now they've been told, oh, you're vaccinated, you've got a passport. This is your passport to freedom. But they're becoming complacent and they're taking all these unnecessary risks, and then it's spreading and there are new variants, and everyone wants to blame the unvaccinated, which are, you know, granted, probably part of the problem, especially these anti-vax, militant anti-maskers that aren't taking any precautions because it's like freedom or death. It's like, well, obviously that's your choice. But it's so frustrating because to me, the anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers and the pro-vaxxers are both getting it wrong on some level, because they both just want life to be normal. One is saying, I'm just not going to do anything you say. You can't restrict my freedom. I'm just going to run amok and do whatever. And one is saying, well, once you've had your vaccine, you can just run amok and do whatever. I'm saying, oh, hell no. Like, have you seen the place? Places that are mostly vaccinated individuals, cases are still surging. You keep hearing, now there's a new variant and they're all vaccinated people with it. Like, are you not getting the concept here that the vaccine will not prevent you from catching SARS-CoV-2, especially when there's a mutation that's allowing it to evade the vaccines and your antibodies? It's more transmissible. Like, they're still learning about it. So a lot of it is conjecture, but if they're already calling it a variant of concern and they're already seeing these distressing things, I mean, 32 mutations is a lot. I'm sure it's not just doing this to be fancy or decorative. Like, there's got to be a reason. It is finding new ways to infect more people. That's what it does. Like, there's a line in Contagion. The virus is better at figuring us out than we are at figuring it out. And it's so tragic that Contagion came out in 2012. We knew that a global pandemic was possible. And the movie's almost a playbook for what actually happened. If they knew this, why didn't they prevent it? You know why? Because no one wants to spend money or take the time to prevent something that might happen. You know? So then here it is, it happens, and we're unprepared. And then everything's too little too late. Like, now we're 2 years into it and still people are taking chances. Like, why are people traveling around the world? Like, I understand if it's an absolute necessity, you have to go to, you're a surgeon and you have to go to this hospital and perform this surgery, or, you know, you've got to get back home to your family. I don't know. If it's a necessity and you're traveling, that's one thing. But people that are just for the fun of it, you know, even if I could afford to travel, you could not give me a trip right now. I would, if you paid me $1 million, I wouldn't get on a plane right now. Are you out of your mind? COVID is airborne. You're trapped in a plane with all these people and all this, oh, hell no. I go out every 2 weeks to get my groceries, and that is it. I mean, other than that, we very rarely go anywhere. And when we do, we are masked. Now, normally, we were just wearing cloth masks, okay? And we were staying like more than 6 feet apart. We stay as far away from people as we can. And we wear a mask. So usually with some sort of cloth mask, you know? It's not perfect, better than nothing. Nose and mouth covered. Now, here's the thing that gets to me, okay? So you're supposed to wear masks in stores, you know, to protect yourself and others. That's the whole idea, right? So some people not wearing a mask at all, or I'll see people, seriously, like if you were a man, would you wear your underwear with like your wiener hanging out? Because that's about the same. Like, it kind of defeats the purpose. Your nose is half the problem. Like, you're still expelling air out of your nose. So yeah, cover your nose and your mouth. What I've done now, because now that they've acknowledged COVID is airborne, and now I've got to worry about even another terrible variant, I want to make extra sure that I'm safe. So I got these masks, they're N95, and it has like a metal part to clip on your nose, and it completely covers you. So I'll show you. Now you kind of look like a duck face, but oh well. So it's tight on your nose, you're covered all around your face. It's tight, it's under, right from under your chin, all around here. So I feel much more secure, and it's got 5 layers, so that's a lot. And what I'll even do is sometimes I'll put, because I mean it's kind of unsightly and scary, put one over it. So then, I mean, if this is 95% protected already, then to me another one on top of it is like that much more. It's more than 100%. I mean, I even got, because I try to make it fun for Michelle, because I mean, yeah, it's not pleasant wearing a mask. Nobody wants to wear a mask. It's not pleasant. It is hard to breathe in. But when you know that, you know, it's survival, you do it. But to make it fun for Michelle, I do try to get fun masks. So now what I'm doing is we'll wear this underneath, and then we'll put another one over it. So I got these ones. Hang on. Like, so isn't that fun? Like, so, you know, it's Christmas, be Christmassy. And, you know, because I wouldn't really trust this to be much protection. It's just a cloth one, but it's funny. And I've got this underneath. So, you know, like, to me, you do the best that you can. Like, I don't understand the people that refuse to wear a mask. Like, I'm still trying to grasp this. They're trying to make it a political thing, right? So they don't want to wear a mask because they don't want to be a Democrat, or if you're in Canada, a liberal. Or is it a xenophobic thing? Oh, well, that's something they do in other countries. I'm not going to do that here. Like, it's so frustrating. Like, it's such a simple thing. I mean, the people that are against the vaccines because they're afraid, I mean, there are problems with the vaccines, don't get me wrong. It is still, overall, it's a risk-benefit analysis, and overall, your risk of getting COVID, it's worse than any potential risks of side effects from the vaccine if you have high exposure. Anyway, I'm not even going to get into that. That's a whole nother can of worms. Could be a video in itself. But a mask, like, even if you didn't want to get a needle, like, you could at least wear a mask. Like, how is that hurting you? I mean, yeah, it's not pleasant, but you adapt to your environment. Like, the environment has changed. Everyone wants to go back to normal. There's no normal to go back to. This is the world now. This is the world that we've created. I mean, not even to get into climate, because climate change and the climate emergency, look what's happened in BC, like roads completely washed out. They've had fires, they've had floods. Like, this is biblical. Like, this is apocalyptic. And I mean, so often they're saying this is a once in 100-year storm. Like, they don't even say that anymore, because now it's once a week. The world is falling apart, and most of it is our doing. So do you not learn anything from that? Like, can we not try to change things? But everyone's so selfish. They just want to carry on and do whatever they're doing and not do anything differently. It's like, well, no, you have to adapt. Does it not make sense to protect the planet that sustains us? Does it not make sense to protect yourself and others by something as simple as wearing a mask? The problem is, like, you have the people that are the COVIDiots that'll just run amok and do anything, and they're not worrying because they don't even think COVID's a thing. Or they believe these stupid conspiracy theories, like taking a horse dewormer, that's going to be a treatment. That's just all nonsense. But then you also have the people that I find worrying too, that are so pro-vaccine, vaccine, as though the vaccine is a cure, and it isn't. And it's giving people a false sense of security. So a lot of people now are vaccinated and they think I've got this vaccine passport and I can do anything. And they're still getting breakthrough infections. They're still transmitting virus. And now there are even variants that are affecting the vaccinated. So this new Omicron variant, there are concerns that it's more transmissible, that there's immune system evasion and vaccine resistance. So the vaccines already, like they weren't 100%. Well, now with this, one even suggested the efficacy might be down to 30%. We don't even know. They're studying it, and they're talking about tweaking the vaccines to account for this variant. But vaccines are a layer of protection. Like, no one can think that they don't have to worry anymore, that they can just do anything. You still need to wear a mask. Ventilation is very important. Wherever you are, it should be well ventilated. There should be HEPA filters. I'm certain that that's not happening everywhere. You should limit your contacts, limit your exposure. Don't be in a crowd. Don't have too many people too close together. Limit gatherings. Like, I didn't even go to Thanksgiving with my family. I'm not going to Christmas with my family. And then I have people attacking me online. Well, you're just living in fear. You're fear-mongering. You're an alarmist. Call me an alarmist. I'll take it. I take it as a compliment, because the times that we are in calls for alarm. I might worry too much. I'll give you that. But there are people, too many people, that don't worry enough. Like, I might be too scared. There are people that aren't scared at all. And they're taking so many chances. And that's what spreads the virus. And I mean, my choices and my opinion, I stay home and stay safe. That isn't hurting anyone. That isn't affecting anyone. I am not risking anyone's life. But if someone has the opposite opinion, that they can just, give me freedom or give me death, and they're not going to wear a mask, and they're not going to get vaccinated, and they're going to take as many chances as they want, that's their prerogative, except that their so-called freedom is infringing on others' freedoms, because they might be a transmitter, they might be a super spreader. They could spread it to someone who's immunocompromised, who ends up dying from it. Can they live with that? Because I know I couldn't. Like, the way I look at it, if I'm wrong by being too cautious, I can live with that. If you are wrong by not being cautious enough, you could die from that. Every statistic that you see is a life. That's person. And I'm so sick of people minimizing it, downplaying it, as though the numbers don't matter. They talk about herd immunity as though we're a herd of cattle, and yeah, the weak ones are going to die and the rest of us will get stronger. Like, fuck you. We're human beings. Those lives matter. And I'm so sick of hearing that, 100 children died, but most of them had other underlying health conditions, as though their lives don't matter. Like, you should be protecting yourself and others. You should not be trying to spread COVID to anyone. No one should be getting COVID. And I'm sure that most of those statistics didn't think it was going to happen to them. To me, the amount of risk that I'm comfortable with is zero. I don't want to get COVID. I don't want my daughter to get sick. I don't want anyone to get, because I couldn't live with myself if I knew that because of my negligence, my recklessness and selfishness, that I caused someone else to get ill. I couldn't live with myself. Like, there are people that flat out don't care, refuse to wear a mask, they'll cough in someone's face. A bus driver literally died because one of the stupid people on the bus, passengers, coughed in his face. Like, I can't fathom how people could be so careless. So, I mean, if people want to mock me that I'm living in fear, crazy to stay home and on voluntary lockdown for 2 years, go ahead, because at the end of the day, I can live with myself. I'm doing what I feel to be right. I'm not hurting anyone by staying home. I don't have FOMO. I don't have fear of missing out. I really could care less. We're home all the time. I'm used to it. I love my daughter. She's happy. We do fun things at home. We're adapting. You adapt to survive. The environment is different. There's no back to normal. There's no normal to go back to. You can only move forward. And this is the world that we're in. And why not do everything that you can to make a better world for yourself and for others? Why would you just recklessly run amok and not even care what you do? I don't understand. And the problem is too, They're loosening restrictions because they want the economy to drive on. They want kids in school. They want parents at work. They want sporting events to open up again, concerts, theaters, take a flight anywhere around the world. Like, for crying out loud, it's too much. Like, anywhere where there are huge crowds, it's a really bad idea. And even if they're masked, I'm pretty sure if you're eating something, you can't eat with a mask on. So they're removing it to eat. So if you're at a sporting event and you get a snack or a drink, if you're at school, kids have to wear masks in school, but what do they do at lunchtime? Don't even talk about the bus. Like, so many things that are unsafe. I keep my daughter home. I've kept her home since last year, and some people would say, oh, you're crazy and you're so isolated. I don't care. I'm keeping us alive. I'm keeping us healthy. We're happy. And we've adapted to this. Like, don't get me wrong. We used to go to the beach once a week in the summer. We didn't go to the beach at all for the last 2 years. I got a pool in the backyard. I got a little inflatable pool, whatever. We adapted. We used to go to the Butterfly Conservatory all the time. A lot of beautiful places we used to visit. We used to go to the movies regularly. We don't do that now. Now we watch movies at home. Now we do things at home because this is the world that we're in. I'm acknowledging real potential threats. Some people just want to pretend it's not happening. Like I say, the opposite of alarmists are denialists, the ones that bury their heads in the sand, pretend it's not happening, everything's hunky-dory. Well, that doesn't make the threat go away. And you're part of the problem. You're what keeps spreading it, because all these people that just don't want to believe that it's going to happen to them, and then they spread it. So, and I mean, so many people keep pushing for vaccination as though that's the only answer. Quite frankly, what if 100% of the population was vaccinated and cases were still surging and new variants were still, what would they say then? Well, then it would be, okay, well, we've got to change the vaccines, and now you just get boosters for the rest of your life, I guess, and they just keep changing it. But vaccines are not the only answer. Like, you have to use every layer of protection that you can. Do the best that you can. You can't just pretend it's not happening and pretend it's not a problem. Obviously, this Omicron variant is serious. The fact that they're already calling it a variant of concern, and it hasn't even been out that long. 32 mutations on the spike protein, many of them brand new. Apparently symptoms are the same, and some people can be asymptomatic. So just like with the Delta or any of the variants, you can be carrying it and not know. That's pretty scary to me. And also, I've been hearing lately about people that have COVID symptoms and yet they test negative, and then they take another test and another and they finally test positive. That's really scary, because if people are basing that negative test, they're using that to say, okay, now they make decisions. Oh, well, I got a negative test, so I guess I can take that flight. I got a negative test, I guess I can go to work. Meanwhile, they're carrying it and they don't know, because then it shows up in a later test. Like, that's all very scary to me. I mean, the virus is very good at figuring out how to be stronger, how to be more contagious, how to get around tests and vaccines. To me, the best mitigations of all, okay, get vaccinated if you have a lot of exposure to people. You know, your risk from the vaccines is less than your risk of COVID. Also, masks. If you're in crowds, stay home if you can, if you're able, if you're willing. Otherwise, mask, avoid large crowds, avoid those situations, avoid travel if you can. Don't go to large events and gatherings. Like, stay away from people, because again, it's like smoke, it travels in the air, right? And have better filtration, have a HEPA filter. So yeah, I mean, they're concerned. Obviously, the WHO is concerned about this new variant because of possible increased infectivity, antibody evasion. They don't know yet for sure about transmissibility and mortality, but apparently, with respect to the Delta variant, it could be 100 to 500% more contagious than Delta. Like, this is really bad. This is 6 times more transmissible, possibly. They're still investigating, but the problem is they keep saying they'll know in 2 weeks. Well, 2 weeks is already too late. Like someone said, the horse is out of the barn. This keeps happening. Like, we keep being caught off guard and loosening restrictions, people becoming complacent, and oh crap, look at this is happening now. Like no one was worrying over in North America. Nobody was worrying that, you know, B16172 was ravaging India, but next thing you know, it's the Delta variant and it's everywhere. Like, you have to take it seriously. This is not just South Africa. It's probably already around the world. In fact, already, well, we know someone flew to Hong Kong, and there's something about Israel, and something about a flight, the Netherlands, 61 people on a flight. Like, it's going to get everywhere. And I mean, now they're having travel bans to South Africa. I think that's too little too late. And it's also not fair to punish South Africa because they're just the ones that identified this, and it probably is all over the world already. But some people just aren't taking any of it seriously. Like they're just not worrying. And again, like all 4 cases, the first cases of this Omicron variant, they were all fully vaccinated people. So much for the vaccine is a cure and it's a guarantee and it's protection and you're not going to catch anything. Well, that's not the case. You hopefully won't end up in the hospital or severely ill, but you can still catch it and you can still spread it, and you can be a super spreader, especially if you're jet setting all around the world and, you know, you can be carrying this and not even know. So I don't know what's going to happen with this. I don't know if Omicron is going to become the new dominant variant and overtake Delta, or if it's not as strong. To me, if the virus is mutating, it's going to be mutating for a benefit. I mean, it wouldn't bother to have all these mutations if they didn't have some benefit for the virus, right? I mean, it's finding new ways to infect, to be more efficient, to be stronger. So, I mean, I'm worried, but I worry about everything anyway. So it isn't really going to affect us that much because we're already home. We're already home all the time. I only go out for groceries and then we're masked. And now with an even better mask, which again, like get a mask that is covering completely all of your nose, around your cheeks, under your cheeks. Because I keep seeing people with the so-called baggy blue, like those surgical masks, and they've got them on and I can see like it's all open at the side. Like all the air can get in there. Like that's not really keeping anything out. Oh, I also thought as an experiment, because we can't see particles of a virus, right? You can't see your breath. I thought of putting glitter and seeing how much can go through. So I'm gonna try an experiment here and see. So how much does this keep out particles? So I'm gonna spray some glitter and see what happens. So yeah, it's around my eyes. It's not really on my nose and mouth at all. Now let's try with a regular mask and see how bad it would be. Okay, yeah, still mostly kept it out. Now let's see if I'm not wearing a mask at all. So without a mask at all, there's glitter all over my nose and mouth. So I guess the moral of the story is err on the side of caution. To me, it's better to be too careful than not careful enough. If we've learned nothing in the last 2 years, it should be that. I mean, it's something so simple. Wear a mask to protect yourself and others. Avoid large crowds. Don't take unnecessary risks. Limit the spread. Get tested. Do everything that you can. If you can stay home, most people aren't willing to do that. And don't attack someone that is staying home, because like, I'm not hurting anyone by staying at home, you know? I think some people just get angry because they want to justify their own choices. And if I'm right by staying home and staying careful, then they're wrong for being reckless and running around and taking chances. The way I look at it, my decision to stay home and be overly cautious isn't hurting anyone. I'm not going out and spreading anything. I'm avoiding it. So people that, you know, say that they want their freedom or death, well, you know, that's fine, except it's not just your death that you're gambling with. you're affecting other people. And your refusal to do something as simple as wearing a mask can affect someone else. Because even if you don't get seriously sick, someone else could, and someone else could die from it. How can you live with yourself knowing that you contributed to that? I'm just so sick of people minimizing and downplaying the risks and acting like statistics aren't people, because they are. And I get it, everyone's got an agenda. The government wants the economy to be up. Obviously, airlines want people to travel, people want to make their money, but lives are more important than profit. Come on. At the end of the day, lives have got to be the most important. We've got to do everything we can to protect people. So anyway, that's my rant on the Omicron variant. Don't know what's going to happen with it, but it sounds pretty bad. So just be as cautious as you can be. And yeah, take care.